A very good afternoon. If you're in Queensland, it's just gone after midday. I hope you're going to have a lovely lunch, unless you had one early. And for those in New South Wales and Victoria and other parts, except for WA, you have gone past our time. And you're probably 300 years in front. No, we are a very, very lucky state in Queensland. And thank you for joining us too for the Country Telegraph. Now, looking at some of the news, making news around Australia, Victoria's Frestine Dairy, which is Indonesian majority owned, has promised to pay 80 farmers for their overdue February milk payments by April 9 after securing a multi-million-dollar investment. But some suppliers have already walked away from that deal, which is some troubling times for those in the land. Now, fertiliser suppliers warn farmers there's absolutely no guarantees of urea supply as industry calls for urgent government task force to coordinate deliveries amid soaring cost. The fertiliser industry and farmers are urging the federal government to introduce a specialised national fertiliser task force to coordinate nitrogen fertiliser supplies and delivery to farms right across Australia. 1 in 4 Australian vegetable growers have opted to reduce or stop planting in the face of soaring diesel and fertiliser cost and shortages, which is not good for those at the supermarket. A snap survey of more than 200 veggie growers by peak industry body AusVeg showed 28% had reduced or halted their planting schedules. Goulburn Murray Water has issued a blue-green algae warning for Lake Eildon, urging the public to avoid contact with the reservoir. Warning signs have been installed at all major rec areas around the lake. And Lake Eildon takes a bit of a battering, but what a great asset it is for Victoria. Greater Shepparton City Council has awarded a contract to Ag Vet Management Services worth more than $228,000 to support ongoing efforts to manage Queensland fruit fly across the region. It will fund the purchase and installation of fruit fly traps to improve monitoring and data collection across both urban areas. And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Bronwyn Petrie is a board member for New South Wales Farmers. Now, Mrs. Petrie and her ex-husband, Bill, a fifth-generation farmer, and their son, Tim, breed beef cattle, harvest timber, and run a tourism venture on their 5 family-owned enterprises south of Tenterfield. Bronwyn, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Mike. I hope everything works here.
Yes, we have launch off. I'm just waiting to hear flight number, and you have to run to the gate. Otherwise, they might leave you behind. And it's so good of you to join us, and I thank you very much. Can you just tell us a brief history about your organisation?
With New South Wales Farmers is a state farming organisation with members across New South Wales, and we have branches across the state and regional representatives who set policy, and of course our annual conference is so important. We also have advisory committees, so I'm chair of the Conservation Resource Management Committee, so we deal with things such as pests and weeds, native vegetation, public land management, mining, etc., and including water, though we also have a water task force. So that's part of my long involvement with native vegetation, and of course we live it on a daily basis up where our farms are near Tenterfield.
New South Wales Farmers published a piece by Nick Savage called Native Vegetation Management, a critical time for critical thinking. What are farmers facing right now throughout New South Wales? What are some of the major issues besides, of course, the obvious, fuel?
Yeah, and it's nice that maybe Minister Bowen might now learn that farmers only use petrol in motorbikes and pumps and chainsaws, and we need diesel, and we're not getting bulk diesel deliveries out on farm, but it is at least flowing to service stations. So in the native vegetation space, it goes back to the introduction of laws back in 1995, and they were onerous, prescriptive, and copped a lot of pushback from farmers because they weren't sensible, weren't practical. We faced 22 years of trying to get the settings right with successive governments and successive ministers. Finally, in 2017, some codes of land management practice came into being, and while still very restrictive, there is some flexibility there to be able to deal with some of the ongoing problems that have caused not just productive issues, but really bad environmental issues, such as the invasive native species. Invasive native species or invasive native scrub is where you get a thickening, an unnatural thickening of bush in open space, and it changes the dynamics altogether. You lose your woodland birds, etc. You end up with no ground covers, and as a result, you get erosion, you get no habitat, etc. So there's a variety of things in those codes. There was a review last year that we're still waiting on the outcome for that, but there were some recommendations there that are quite concerning, such as reducing our 15-year permit time down to 3 years or 7. So that means farmers are really pushed to work very quickly, and they may have to ignore things such as weeds, feral animals, fencing that might need doing. You might have floods or bushfires just to meet that time frame. And local land services is drastically under-resourced, so that's an issue there. Currently, there's also the Natural Resource Commission review of those codes, and we'll be awaiting the outcomes of those. Unfortunately, we're finding, particularly like just recently, the Wentworth Group report, people are great at looking over the fence on private land and saying how they think this should all be done for public good. Well, farmers, we don't go out to destroy the environment. Every day we want to hand that farm back, onto our kids. As you said, my son is 6th generation, and it's we take great pride that we can combine production and conservation hand in hand. So government interference that restricts that ability and causes perverse environmental outcomes, let alone productive outcomes, is not helpful.
Yeah, I'm intrigued, and New South Wales is not a Robinson Crusoe here. If you look right around Australia, state or federal government, there used to be an ad in the States when I lived there, and there was this old granny, and she says, walking into a hamburger store, "Where's the beef?" Well, in this case, with the government and New South Wales, what's their beef with farmers? And they're not all that friendly. They're not all that supportive to the farming industry, unless they walk into a supermarket near Kirralee or near the in North Sydney or somewhere like that. You know how it is, and they haven't got any food. So then they will realise that farmers are not just an afterthought. Farmers, because of food security and the moving forward of this nation, are very, very important. So what's the beef with state government at the moment with your farmers? I just don't understand that.
Look, unfortunately, there's some people within the bureaucracies, not necessarily the politicians, but within the bureaucracies, who are still stuck to the ideology of command and control, and they really hated losing some of that control back in 2017 with that code legislation that came in. And we're not communist China. This is a democracy. This is freehold land, etc. And metropolitan people are fabulously supportive, in times of drought, etc. But there's this disconnect, and they're easily influenced by the headlines that go, "Oh, rampant land clearing," without drilling down and finding out that this so-called rampant land clearing is predominantly land management of existing native veg, just like weeding your garden. Over and over and over, you're removing regrowth and thinning, timber out. 60% of that is actually in ground covers, and it's not all native. So the stats are wrong. The message is very emotive. It makes people think that we're clearing the Amazon, and we're not. We're managing land for food and fibre production, and we're also providing habitat and environmental outcomes and good water, all that kind of stuff for the community good as well as our own. And unfortunately, you know, with the drift to the cities, you don't have people necessarily going out on farms like they used to and understanding food and fibre production, as in, you know, years past. So we've got to sell that message to people so they have a better understanding and not to believe the dramatic headlines.
What advice are you giving to your members? Because, I mean, the last thing they want, and it happens all the time, has been happening since Adam was a boy, but state or federal government loves giving advice from the bureaucrats on how you should manage your acreage, your land, and they have got no idea. I mean, the closest most of those have come to some veggies or a sheep or whatever is at a fairly toffee restaurant or a McDonald's hamburger joint, because they don't know much about it, do they? They don't know, yet they're willing to put their beak into a farmer's life and tell them how to run their piece of land. Very frustrating. So, what advice do you give those then to the guys, people on the land? I mean, do you say stock up your 12 gauge? Do you say stock up your 12 gauge? Have that ready? I don't know.
No, we don't do that. And we certainly don't have belt-fed shotguns, which do not exist but are currently banned in the new legislation. They do exist in some war games on the computer, but certainly not in real life.
Oh, that's right. Of course not.
That's a different story. So we want our farmer members to tell the story. At the moment, get me photos of what they're dealing with. So that we can get those to the people in the decision makers who don't understand because they haven't been out there, they have not seen it firsthand. And, you can't be green if you're in the red. And, I remember being on committees and some people thought that we lie awake at night deciding what tree we're going to kill the next day. It's just so absurd with the reality of life on the land. And we have to get that message across. We need that advocacy. We need people to join New South Wales farmers so that we can get that word into the decision makers and in fact to the community so they have a better understanding of what happens out in the food and fibre production of this state and indeed Australia, because it is so important. As we've just seen recently, we are an island. We have to be more self-sufficient. Look, I can remember one day one of the bureaucrats said, look, we want all riparian areas fenced off, creeks, rivers, everything. I said, well, how are the native animals going to get water? And they said, they'll get it from the troughs. And I said, how's an echidna going to get up into a trough and have a drink? I hadn't thought about that. It's this impracticality with some of it, and it's a lack of experience. And I remember I worked with timber communities for a while, and we used to take Canberra bureaucrats out to see what happens in the forest. It was a complete eye-opener to bureaucrats to actually see firsthand what was happening.
It's very sad, isn't it? What about the penalties for native vegetation clearing? I would imagine the government needing a few extra bucks would make those fairly heavy, to say the least. Can you tell us about that? And does it? It must worry farmers, because if they do what government wants them to do, then they're going to eventually the business will not be sustainable.
It's not just the penalties, and they can be very extreme. So, actually, you have to prove yourself innocent. So we're far worse off. Farmers are worse off than murderers and pedophiles, because we don't have innocent until proven guilty. We have to prove that we are actually innocent. Not only that, it's then a criminal record. That means you can't do things such as be justice of peace, be on council, etc., etc. But the other thing that's happened just recently with the changes brought in the federal government with the Environment Protection Biodiversity Conservation Act, we've got legal removal of invasive native species in the western areas. That's really expensive to do this, but you have to do it if you don't want to have your land destroyed. Where some farmers have been issued a stop work order from the federal government, even though they've got the legal permit, and told that they've got to quarantine that land for 20 years. So it's just going to come up thicker than ever. Because there's seems to be no right of appeal. There's been no conversation with the state government officers to say, well, why were these permits issued? Because even though it's different legislation, I do know that local land services are really diligent when they do issue those permits. So there's just this quagmire of uncertainty that's happening as a result of that. So but the penalties are really very high. Interestingly, if you clear a hectare of certain vegetation, you've got a $20,000 penalty per hectare. But if you sign up to protect that in perpetuity on your land title, you get something like $100. So there's a complete reversal of value depending on the activity. So if
Oh,
you
that's
can,
terrible.
why isn't it
I go back.
equivalent?
I go back to my original thing, 12 gauge shotgun. But anyway, that's, they don't really hurt anyway. They just give you a sting in the bum.
Yeah.
Just tell us quickly your thoughts on the Wentworth Group, which is, involves Professor Tim Flannery, who said that Brisbane will be the first major city in the Western world that will run out of water. And that same year we had massive floods, who also bought because of the rising water levels around the world, he also bought a house on the water. So he's not a very sincere person, it's more of opportunity. And I would see that the Wentworth Group probably most likely is a group full of people that are there for opportunity. What would you say to them?
He also said that we'd never see dams full again, and of course we
That's
went into
right.
those bad floods. Don't forget that one. Uh, uh, but there are. Remembering the Wentworth Group was formed because they met in the Wentworth Hotel and decided to in Sydney and decided to form a group. There are some very reputable scientists in the Wentworth Group, including one who was previously Dr. Neil Byron, who did the 2014 independent review into native vegetation legislation in New South Wales, where he clearly identified that the laws had failed biodiversity, failed farmers, and had to change. And that was the genesis of the new legislation. However, we have other people like Ken Henry, etc., who are just saying, oh, we've got to save the world, we've got to lock up all the farms, they've got to, the farmers have to provide all this public good. At the same time, we've got public land where millions and millions of animals were incinerated in those fires due to very high Armageddon fuel loads. You've got to walk the talk. And it's all very well to be in ivory towers and ignore what is really happening. As I said, we're not communist China. Farmers need to be able to produce food and fibre for this nation and also for our exports. Our Premier, Chris Minns, said at our conference last year, he is looking to agriculture to help replace the coal royalties that they're going to lose in years to come, the 44 billion. So he's looking at 30 billion of that coming from agriculture. Agriculture needs to be successful. We need, in this cost of living crisis, we need to be able to produce efficient food. And, food, you don't grow wheat, etc., under trees, and you certainly don't grow it where trees have invaded what were previously very open areas. So I think it's all very well to hop up and spout all this ideology, but not actually grapple with the reality of it, and somehow think that this is just all going to be great, and the farmers are going to be able to afford to stay on the land. Unlike South Australia, who years ago were compensated for when their native vegetation was sort of taken by the state. This farmers, particularly in Queensland and New South Wales, they paid the price for Kyoto. That's the only reason Australia met its Kyoto targets, was on the back of the native vegetation of the farmers in Queensland and New South Wales, with no compensation whatsoever, and that meant that everyone else in society did not have to pay massively increased, electricity prices or transport prices or anything like that. And that to us was theft, absolute theft of an asset, which is on title. So get very frustrated when desk-bound academics, create all this great ideas for saving the world when they're really not saving the world at all. It's the farmers out there on the land who are saving the world.
Well, the farmer is and has to be a great conservationist, has to be one that looks after the environment, because if they don't make any money. And really interesting, we had a guy on last week talking about fertiliser, and he does a very natural fertiliser. And he was talking to, and this is how things change. He was talking to this farmer who says, I use your stuff on my garden and it really goes great. And because he was whinging also, this farmer, about his crop wasn't all that great. And this fellow who runs this fertiliser company said, well, it's odd that you use this great fertiliser, which is natural, on your garden, and it's going at fantastic speed, yet you're using an inferior fertiliser on the stuff that keeps the roof on your head. Should that be the other way around? And it probably should be. Farmers are always evolving. They are looking at ways not to destroy the planet, not like the governments who want to destroy the planet to save it. They have to make sure that they look after the land they're on, because once it's gone, it's very hard to bring back. Bronwyn, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I have to say, this is the first time, but I would love to do more of this, because I think there's many, many issues that we need to look at. I think farming has become so complex, and most of that, in my humble opinion, is government-led. And I think we need to make sure that farmers are looked after, because they do a tough job. To get up in the morning early and to finish late at night, and to work, because my dad was a farmer, and to see that Mother Nature could turn against you in an instant. And what you have to do is get up again and fix it and look forward to the next year. So it's a great life, but it's a very, very tough life too. And I think we need to show farmers and rural and outback communities that we do love them, and they are important for this country to move forward. If somebody wants to get hold of you, Bronwyn, or your organisation, how do they do that?
Well, look, New South Wales Farmers is listed, but look, my own email is petrieb@newsouthwalesfarmers.org.au. By all means, reach out, tell me your story. Give me your examples of what invasive native scrub is doing to your properties and to the environment. As you said, farmers are great innovators. Zero-till farming changed so much with soil health, and it is a hard life. I remember my father-in-law, a new doctor, came along and he said, "Oh, you'd be retired now," and he went, "Oh, what's retirement?" But that's how it is. But there has been overclearing, but that has been actually at government behest. When leases were first taken up, they were told to clear down to 5%. Farmers actually had to fight to keep what they saw as good quality trees, etc. But we have big open plains, we have open woodlands, etc., doing grazing, and of course you can't grow crops except in open country. So it's a mixture of both, and we have to do the best we can to have the best practices, implement those, and grow really good food, really good fibre, and keep this country rolling along. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, fantastic. Have a great flight. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll do this again
shortly. In a 2.5-hour drive home.
Keep that drinking down to minimal on the plane. Yeah. Take care, Bronwyn Petrie.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right. This is the Country Telegraph. And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Trevor Hold is the publisher of the Australian Advocate, which is excellent reading. And he's up at the front. He's taking on all sorts of irregularities in our modern world. As an entrepreneur, Trevor is involved in several business ventures, ranging through farming and ag, counselling, mental health, empowerment, and advocacy services. Trevor, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to see you again.
Yes, those whiskers are getting longer.
Yeah, I might have to trim them up a bit, but I let them grow wild just to put people off. That's all.
No, no,
Trying to
no.
scare the children.
I'd hate to wake up. I'd hate to wake up to you at midnight looking at that, and then not let you wake up to you at midnight. So, look, tell us about what's in the April edition.
Well, the April edition of the Australian Advocate paints a very stark picture of a nation under environmental, agricultural, and policy strain. It has a consistent theme of systems designed for stability are now failing under real world pressure. So we touch on environmental issues, agricultural issues, economy, law and civil liberties, politics, sovereignty, and public health. So it's a quite diverse range of stories across the entirety of Australia, from Darwin ports to South Australia algae, even far north Queensland to the yellow crazy ants, and a lot of issues in between.
Yeah, those ants. You got ants. Ants. Remember that ad where that girl had the ants crawling up her? And if the state government saw that, Queensland state government saw that these days, they'd spray her. Let's get rid of those pesky ants. You know, it's amazing those little horrors that run through your imagination. Tell us about your thoughts on this farm crisis. Some of the main points have been raised: crop production down. What else is there? System shock, diesel stranglehold, fertiliser trap, supermarket and food shortage, path to recovery. My own bit there is, why the hell would you be a farmer?
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's no secret that farming is quite draining on your overall well-being and health, and they're highly represented in suicide statistics across Australia. In Australia, 9 people every day, according to the Bureau of Statistics, that was published in 2024. So 9 people every day die by suicide, which is quite alarming, and a high level of them numbers can be attributed to regional areas who face a lot of difficulties that a lot of metro areas don't have in regards to managing some of these farming issues and regional communities. So it isn't easy, but often a lot of these people, it's in their soul. It's not really a lifestyle, or it's not really a choice that they make. It's just who they are. So I feel that it's important to support these people to be the best they can be, and to manage their land and their community in the best interest of the environment that they work in.
Look, you've been through the ringer, and that's the understatement. And I would imagine that may continue, because there are organisations out there that are quite vindictive. We look in Victoria and New South Wales, but look at Victoria, where the state government can acquire land without consultation to implement its let's save the planet policy by putting in interconnectors or windmills or solar farms or whatever. Tell us, because just from and because you've been through all sorts of stuff, what goes through a farmer's mind, and where can they go in their mind? How do they get out of this spiralling, just into a chasm of despair and obliteration? Because if government can come in and just say, we're taking that and bugger off, it would have to do terrible things to a person's mental health, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and there's a few strategies that we talk about in regards to that, Mike. So basically, what you're talking about are the 3 Ps, the enemies of optimism. The first P being permanent, and the second P being persuasive, and the third P being personal. So to put it in a nutshell, it's a type of thought process where you're thinking everything is shit, everything all around me is shit, it's always going to be shit, and it's all my fault that it's shit. And excuse the language, but that's what sort of is going on inside people's heads when things aren't working out, and a lot of people are taking the responsibility and the burden of situations on their own shoulder, and it's very difficult to separate the individual from the circumstance. So, we as individuals are not entirely made up of our circumstance that we find ourselves in. There are other elements to us as an individual. So the first thing that I suggest to my clients is we try to move away from and fight the 3 P's of pessimism, the enemies of optimism, and that's by the first thing is by removing the permanent side of things. So it's the belief that it's not always going to be this way. There's steps you can take, and there's things will change over time. The sun will come up in the morning, and and things will be better tomorrow. So it's not going to be forever. So just trying to hold on to that fact that, look, we're going through a difficult time now, but it's not going to be forever. We're going to get through this, and trying to find support to help you think along them lines. Pervasiveness is about thinking that everything around me is bad, so that's why nature walks or going around and just finding some exceptions to that, like seeing a beautiful songbird in the morning in the early hours in your garden chasing insects. It's a beautiful thing to see. Or going for a walk and seeing a beautiful rose and with its petals or whatever. Even the miracle of life and looking at a tree in the forest, and just understanding that how that evolved and how that came to be is a miracle. So just trying to find some beauty around all the hardship and pain that you're experiencing with some of these draconian government decisions, and I feel that sort of helps. But separating yourself from your circumstances is probably one of the most things. It's not all your fault. Life happens, things happen. We're all humans. We all make mistakes. That's what definition of us as a human is. So trying to work through them 3 P's of pessimism and trying to find a support to help reinforce some of them thoughts to get you through them 3 P's and try to have a brighter look on it is very important. And to assist doing that, Mike, understanding your circle of influence can help as well. So there are some strategies, breathing strategies and some walking strategies and different things. Cold water on your face, cold showers. There's a lot of things that you can do, but ultimately, what we've got to try to do is come together as a community and support each other, because unfortunately these government decisions and these government, like Bronwyn was saying, these bureaucratic officers don't have a clue, and they don't consider any emotional toll they're having on the community. They've got their objective, they've got their blinkers on, and they're just focused on, this is what we got to do, and if we can't do this, we get a bigger hammer and we're going to whack you into line, and that's literally the thinking of them. So as a community and sticking together and trying to help each other, and one of the biggest failings that I know is these rural communities who need all the support they can get are lacking support services, even simple things like GPs or doctors or psychologists, counselling. A lot of these services are lacking in these regional communities, and that's where they're probably required more, because there's less job opportunities, there's less recreational activities, there's a lot of problems out there that obviously need addressing. So and that's why we set up Australian Advocacy Group. We're here to provide advocacy and services and try to help people through these difficult times, and that's why we've got the publication, the Australian Advocate, to try and raise awareness on a lot of these issues that are causing problems for millions of Australians right across the country.
I'm just looking at one government and their limited services. It's quite ironical. Their government will have a limited service there with maybe people to help with the your mental health, or whether you're down in the dumps or whatever. Yet it's government that, in many cases, that is creating this in the first place. So it's like someone saying, "I'm going to shoot you, but I'll also fix you because I'm a doctor," and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. The other thing too, remember the old days? They'd say, my dad and friends of the family and other friends would go through it, and they'd say, "Oh, just man up, just put that aside and get back into it." that doesn't work, does it? Because the devil is still there, just hiding and lurking, and one day he'll come out even stronger and harder.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. There's still a stigma out there, and especially in the rural communities. So there's generational connections to the land there. I think your last guest was talking about six generations or something back, and that in itself creates stress and pressure, not letting down your legacy or you know of your family name, sort of thing. So there's a lot of perceived things that may not be real, but obviously if you're the sixth generation farmer and the farm runs out of money and can't be sustained on your shift, then obviously that's a lot of pressure that you've got to live with, isn't it? You know, like your granddad or whatever set it up or whatever all them years ago, and suddenly you're unable to sustain it, and that creates a lot of negative outcomes at all. But also too, because in these regional communities everyone does know each other and this and that, and if you do you know, make a mistake or something happens within that community, then it's often amplified, because in the city and that no one knows, you don't even know who your neighbour is, and you know everyone's just going about their life and this and that, and you got gym services and you got this and you got you know, cafes and that to go to or whatever, and gossiping groups or whatever. It's a lot easier to make mistakes and not have to dwell on it, you know what I mean? But in them country areas, there's a lot of factors that people don't realise are an issue, even to the point where, for example, in the city, your husband and wife can go to you know, professional earn good money in professional capacity, because there's babysitting services or daycare services, or there's ways that you can manage your children a lot easier in regards to there's just so many services there that you take for granted. But in these rural communities, often you're really dependent on that farm to generate the income for probably your whole family, you know what I mean? Not just your mum and dad, but probably some of the kids or some of the uncles, and everyone's sort of based on the success of that operation. So there's a lot of issues there, and it is very disappointing, but very well acknowledged by me anyway, and you said it too, that the main problems that are occurring are government driven, and you know, and you see on these ads about your mental health and on the TV, and they've got these mental health departments and all this stuff, but it's not helping them in their decision-making process, which is fundamental to having a happy population, isn't it, obviously?
How do they take on government, though? I mean, when that's probably the largest organisation in Australia, whether it's state or federal, even local. And when they come after you, you have to have your wits about you, and you've got to be very resilient. You have to be quite determined.
Resilient. Yeah, and I suppose that's where I'm a little bit blessed, because I did do my Cert 4 in mental health, and I've done my diploma in counselling. I just completed my Bachelor of Psychological Science, and I'm just starting my Masters in Human Rights and Social Advocacy. So obviously you build up skills and you build up abilities to go through it. But as you know, Mike, I've been involved in this fire ant campaign now for over 18 months, going on 2 years now probably. I've been arrested. I was assaulted by police, tackled in my own backyard, handcuffed, and been going through the court process as we speak. I've gone to court about 8 times or whatever on obstructing police charges. And I'm trying to deal through that, but in the meantime, I'm still focused on solutions. It's not enough just to say you don't like what the government's doing or this and that. I'm a firm believer in coming up with solutions and trying to find alternatives to what's causing all the drama. And the biggest thing that I'm driven by is my community. So, and if you've got your community behind you, then there's nothing they can do to hurt you. And it's just about understanding who you are as a person and what you're trying to achieve, because if you don't know who you are and what your values are, then the ABC is surely going to tell you. Like I've had ABC articles calling me a conspiracy theorist, even though I had commercial contracts with 2 internationally recognised universities working on alternatives to the toxic chemical approach that they were taking. The ABC still called me a conspiracy theorist, But because I know who I am, other people can't define me. Who are they to define me? They don't even know me, yet they're giving me these labels. And it's just trying to have the character about you and understanding who you are and what you're trying to achieve, that gives you the confidence that when these insults or when these narratives come at you in the public domain, then it's not so challenging to overcome, because you know in your heart who you are, and you know what you stand for. And these people who don't even know you, who are trying to label you to discredit you as a person, rather than look at the issues that you're debating, they can't debate these issues on a practical level. So they go after the character, then that just shows that you're winning. So, and these are the things I tell all my clients and what I'm doing. So it's not easy to change bureaucratic, decision-making processes, especially when they're billions of dollars. The fire ant campaign is $1.2 billion over 25 years or whatever, and growing. But and it's probably very similar with the transmission lines and the net zero policies and that sort of stuff. But I feel as a community, we can do anything in regards to these policies, because that's what the government's here for, is for us, the people. So that's why I've gone down the social advocacy route, and I feel there's a lot of issues and a lot of help that I can provide my skills with to help other communities in a solution focused process.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to wrap this up, but tell me, when does the next edition come out? I know it's due soon. When? Yeah.
We normally get them out before the second Friday of each month. That's when we try to. Often we'll probably sneak it out a couple of days earlier before that, Mike, if it's ready. But generally the second Friday of each month is when it's available. The publication link's on the thing. And then from there, I suppose, we got some on the aagpilot.com website. You can actually subscribe to that website, and when we do a article on that, then you get the email, and we can pick several. We do regular posts of different stories and that to people, and also keep up to date on some of the campaigns that we focused on. As at AAG, members get to decide what they want to focus the efforts on in their campaigning and what's important to them. So it's important, if you've got any issues or you've got any campaigns you want to get off the ground, then you can join up AAG, and we can certainly have a look at voting and getting them campaigns across the line to move them forward as well.
You're doing a great job. I'm sure you'll go to heaven, although I just heard from St. Peter he wants that stuff. And again, Merv Hughes, he's going to take out a lawsuit. Someone's impersonating me. Look, Hold, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. We'll do this again. I think you have some wonderful ideas and some solutions or start of getting better, because at the moment I'm sure there are many people on the land who are going, oh man, this is just too bloody hard. And it's very, very hard, but you got to, put your head down, your backside up, but you do need help. People do need help.
And it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask for help. There are people here to help, and that's the biggest message that I want. You're not alone. There are people here to help, and you don't have to take these issues on your own shoulders. Share the load, and we can all help each other through it. Ultimately, 3,500 people a year dying by suicide is not acceptable, and we need to get that better. Mike, that's my message.
It's terrible. In fact, what we will do is we'll get on maybe in the next couple of weeks and just talk about that too, because that is a very highly unacceptable. And I think as Australians, we should be ashamed that number exists. Trevor Hold, thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having me. No worries, guys. Thank you. See you. Bye.
Beauty. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Too much rain has forced organisers to cancel this year's Birdsville Big Red Bash. The Outback Music Festival on the edge of the Simpson Desert can now not go ahead because the site's been flooded. Unable to find a new location for the iconic event. It will be back though. There's good news for next year, and the majority of this year's great lineup have now committed to 2027. Ticket holders can request a refund, transfer their tickets to next year's festival, or even transfer them to this year's Big Bash in Broken Hill.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. By the way, the scene behind me is a magnificent part of New South Wales. It's Eden, and if you've got yourself a few bucks, probably a mortgage to get some juice in the car, maybe that's a place to go. If you've got a diesel, you'll need 2 mortgages at the moment, but the government's working on that. It was announced with sadness that an epic annual event in the Outback, the Birdsville Big Red Bash, truly, it's been on, I don't know how many, every news bulletin would have this on, and it looked like a lot of fun, except for some of our city slickers in those days. It's like, oh, there's dust and dirt and blowflies. Anyway, it's been cancelled. Greg Donovan is a trailblazing music entrepreneur who founded the hugely successful Birdsville Big Red Bash and the Broken Hill Mundi Mundi Bash, creating the world's most remote music with the Big Red Bash in the Simpson Desert and New South Wales' biggest outback event with the Mundi Mundi Bash. Greg, thanks for joining me.
Hey Mike, nice to join you.
Yeah, you must be hugely disappointed. I mean, I would imagine the thousands upon thousands of people wanting to socialise with flies. They'd also be quite disappointed too.
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing. So much work goes into putting one of these things together, and so much planning. It takes sort of months and months to put everything together, and we had the event was fairly much sold out. Over 90% of tickets were sold, so we were all ready to rock and roll. But Mother Nature had other ideas, and she sent things down in bucket loads, and nearly 2 years worth of rain in a few days, and that was it. The site's sort of underwater and unlikely to dry up, or won't dry up certainly by July when the event's on, and not enough time for us to be able to set it up, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. What about another area, another location? Was that possible, or just too tight?
Yeah, look, it's too tight. It was getting fairly close to the event. There were possible, we'd had looked at other venues around the sort of the desert in that area, but with all of the rain, most of the other places were very wet and soggy. They were very hard to assess whether or not they would even be suitable. And even when you get a new place, there's a lot of planning to do to actually get it set up and plan it all out and make it work, and all the logistics and so forth. So, and people really are heading out to Big Red. They go out there to go to the Big Red Dune. That's the highlight of the whole festival. The whole, you've got this massive 40-metre high dune in the backdrop of the festival. People go up and down there and watch the sunrise and the sunset. They do yoga up there and all sorts of stuff. Kids ride their boogie boards, and you just can't get that in another location. If we were to move it, for instance, into Birdsville, into the infield of the racetrack, it's pretty much just like a big paddock, and certainly wouldn't be the experience people are really looking for and driving all that way to get to.
What about the history? Of the whole event. Birdsville itself, just with the races, it's always been it's been going on since Ned Kelly was a boy. Tell us about the this one. The history of it and where you see it heading towards.
Yeah, well, the history. We started this off as a very little event back in 2013. There was no real intention to create a big music festival. We were doing a running event, raising money for charity for type 1 diabetes, and which my young son Stephen has, and we had John Williamson out singing a few tunes on the dune to keep the runners and the volunteers sort of keep their spirits up, and everybody said, wow, that's great, having music out here in the desert, that's so different, and so that sort of twigged the idea of, well, maybe we should do something with that. Maybe we should sort of set up a little mini festival, have a couple of artists out here and have some music in the desert, and we did that the following year, and people like that. More people came, and it just sort of evolved from there. It just got bigger and bigger. The word spread. We kept putting more and more effort and more organisation and more art and more production and more artists. And one thing went to another, and before we knew it, it was a 10,000 person festival. Nobody would be crazy enough to sort of just go out there and say, I'm going to start a 10,000 person music festival in the middle of nowhere. It just wouldn't happen. But luckily it just evolved, and it allowed it to get to where it is.
Yeah, I have to say that's it's really Australian too, isn't it? I mean, you can't get anything, as they would say, anything more fair dinkum, and it's will go down history of being one of the great events. This year not happening. Next year though, you're bringing most of the artists who were booked for this year are coming back. Tell us about the artists and they would have been disappointed. They all would have been disappointed.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the artists look forward to getting out to Birdsville just as much as we do, and all the patrons. They love it, performing out in the desert. And we had a cracking lineup ready to rock and roll, and But luckily, look, they've all been really accommodating, and just about all of them. I think there might be just one, possibly two, that may not be able to make it, and not because they don't want to. It's just because their schedule is already locked in for that time of the year, and whether they'll be able to rearrange that, they're looking at. But just about every artist has committed to come back, so that's been great, and we'll eventually get the thing done.
What about the flyers?
No, the flies are pretty good actually. I think you get a few flies when we're setting up, when there's not many people around, but when 10,000 people arrive, they've got a lot more people to share themselves around. So
They've all swallowed those flies. There's nothing worse than swallowing a fly, by the way. Let me tell you, terrible thing. But then you wash it down with some liquid, and it's all better mostly.
Yeah, a beer generally, yeah.
Just tell us. I mean, because you're you're national, people would have gone to great effort to travel. I mean, it's not just a couple of hours away. It's for some it can be 2 nights getting there, and the audience wasn't just Australian. It was also you were starting to build from overseas.
That's correct. I mean, most of the people who come, really make, it's a long way from anywhere really. I mean, it's sort of 700 kilometres from the nearest town, let alone from the capital city. So a lot of people, it's 2 or 3 days drive, and but people use the opportunity to build a trip around it. So they're going to the outback, they're visiting a whole lot of other places and towns and camping, and generally people will be doing a 2 or 3 week trip with the big red bass sort of in the middle of all of that, and so it's a real tourism thing, and it brings so much tourism to such a broad area, in the outback, and that's the real benefit of the event to tourism and to the outback generally, and that's the real attraction for it. And the great thing about the fact that everybody who is at the festival, they're all in the middle of a holiday, and when you're in the middle of a holiday, you're generally pretty happy. So we've got a really happy crowd.
Yeah, and also besides the rainfall, the other thing is they need something to put in their car to get from A to B, and that was diminishing. I mean, a lot of people use diesel for their vehicles, especially those going over some rough terrain, and others just with petrol cars. EVs would take you a year to get there. And so all these logistics that have come into it, and for it to be cancelled, I mean, you've got the catering, you've got the water. I mean, it's just enormous. What happens now? How do you wind that back?
Yeah, well, I guess what we've done is we've talked to all the people involved with the festival in the lead up to the cancellation, just so that they were aware of it before it was publicly announced. But it was about 3 months away, or just over 3 months away, so that most people, at least having that much notice, were able to use that to look at their schedules and so forth. And we've obviously cancelled all of our suppliers and that sort of thing. So we've done our best to. It costs a lot of money to put a festival out there, so we've done our best to try and reduce the amount we've had to spend on a festival that's actually not going ahead. So But we have spent, a lot of money already getting the thing up and going, and paying deposits for all the artists and doing all the planning and buying a whole lot of stuff, and hiring charter planes, and, on and on it goes, paying our insurances, and there's a lot of spending that goes on, and before a festival, most of it happens before the festival, and once the festival happen, then you earn the money from the tickets you've sold.
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing too. I mean, the amount of work that would have gone into it. But you've got another one, I think it's Mundi Mundi in Broken Hill. I mean, which probably has just a little more life than Birds. Tell us about that one.
Yeah. Well, it's actually Mundi Mundi rather than Mundi Mundi. It's
That
pronounced
Mundi,
Mundi Mundi.
I'm from Mildura. We speak different.
Yeah, Mundi Mundi Bash. It's there's another huge festival we developed off the back of Big Red Bash. Big Red Bash was being so successful, we decided to do something similar, but in a place that's a little bit more accessible, but still in the outback, being Broken Hill. And it's become really popular because it is so accessible. And we're looking at sort of a crowd of about 14,000 people or so. And again, that festival is probably over 90% sold already. It happens at the end of August, and we're still full steam ahead with that, organising that festival. And in fact, some of the people from the Big Red Bash have chosen, rather than get a refund, to take tickets to the Mundi Mundi Bash and head down there instead in August. So a few people are taking that option. So it's another great festival, great lineup of artists. Some of them are similar to the Big Red Bash, but a lot of them are different, and we're really looking forward to that now.
14,000 people. That's a lot, isn't it?
It is a lot, especially in a town like Broken Hill, which is, Broken Hill's a fairly decent-sized town, 17,000 people, but very historical place, and lots of businesses and facilities and infrastructure. But you're bringing pretty much the same population as there is in Broken Hill into it, for a few days temporarily.
Yeah, Broken Hill. When I've been talking to my wife, I want to do a drive because we're on the Gold Coast where lubra lips and Botox bottoms roam free. But I want to do a drive and go through Broken Hill, go through, I think, Moree, and then Broken Hill into Adelaide, because it's an amazing place, Broken Hill. And the people, and I lived in Mildura, and we used to drive to Broken Hill, and I used to think there's not much here. And I still think the same thing, but it has this particular beauty about it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a real historic place. It's, beautiful outback sort of vibe. You've got all the old history. You've got a lot of art in town. There's a real hub for artists and art. You've got the outback side of things. You can head out to Silverton, the old mining town, and check all that out. That's really super interesting. And up to the Silverton, the classic Silverton Hotel, up to the Mundi Mundi lookout to look across the vast Mundi Mundi plains, up onto the line of load to the Miners' Memorial, and look down over the town, and so many great pubs and restaurants and places in and around Broken Hill. It's definitely somewhere you can spend quite a bit of time at.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be a good one. I was just thinking as we were talking, it'd be nice. What's your internet, Bob? We'll get Starlink anyway. So, yeah, sort of because I like to do things a bit differently. Maybe we can chat about us popping down there and doing a whole bunch of shows live from there. I mean, it would be absolutely amazing, but you have to keep those flies away.
Yeah. Oh, it's not too many flies. We really haven't had too many dramas.
I think that in August. You're right.
Mundi. It's been pretty good there, really.
They hang around. They follow me like, there it is. Terrorise that bugger. If somebody wants to find out more about, let's talk about Mundi Mundi, because it's in August. Where do they go, and how do they do that?
Yeah, I guess the easiest thing is to Google up Mundi Mundi Bash, or go to the website Mundi Mundi Bash. We've got a huge amount of information on there for particularly for first timers who are trying to find out about it, looking at how to do it and how it works and everything. So, yeah, I reckon that's the first point of call, is to head to our website. It's got everything you need there, and gives you a good idea about what it's about.
Gee, it would get pretty cold in winter, wouldn't it, at night?
It gets to about, generally on winter, it's 7 or 8 degrees. That's nice rugging up weather. So
yeah, it's too cold.
Nice.
Flies. But it's fantastic. In fact, what we need to do is talk more about this, because I think it's important. I think it's important for communities, and these sort of things bring not only the local community together, it brings everybody together, and we certainly need a bit of positiveness, don't we, at the moment?
We do. It's yeah, things are a bit bleak at the moment, and you know, I think it's a great place for Australians to come together from every corner of the country, and put all the day-to-day stuff behind them, and just focus on being with each other and having fun in such a great environment. So yeah, it's a bit of an escape really from
Life's too short. It is
yes,
way
it is.
too short. Greg,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. Let's do this again in the not too distant future and talk about Broken Hill and Monday, not Mundi. Mundi is better though. I mean, it does. It sounds like I'm from the middle of Australia. Mundi. Thank you so much for your time. This
No,
is
great
the
to chat.
Country Telegraph, and if you can, and tickets are still available. Is it right?
Tickets are still available for Monday. Yeah, as I said, it's over 90% sold now. So you know, they will go at some stage, but yeah, there's still some available.
Good on you. It's I'm jealous, except for the flies. Take care. Thank you very much for your time. This
Yeah,
is
lovely
the
to
Country
chat.
Telegraph. If you're going to do something in August, head down to Broken Hill, and we will have more information later on about that. Catch you tomorrow. Commercial break. I'll come back and I'll say goodbye to everybody. This is the Country Telegraph. And that's it for our show today. Thank you so much for being part of it. Had some great guests on. Monday. I reckon that'll be you know, what happens in Monday stays in Monday. Need I say any more? But what a great event that is, and we will talk more about it. And I think it's important for not only the locals, it's also important for the whole country, and get rid of all that negativity we have at the moment, because there's a lot around. And if you're on the land, if you're living in a regional, rural, or living in the outback in an outback town, man, oh man, it's tough, but it's worth it. It's you have fresh air at least. Have a good one. I'll catch you tomorrow. Same bale of hay, same phone box. And be kind to your neighbours.